How did I go from fired to winning big in court? I am a 34-year-old woman who has always been a bit of a tomboy. I like cars, sports, and reptiles. When I was 25, I decided to change my career and finally follow my dream of working in an auto repair shop as a painter, just like my father did. To start my training, I needed to already have a job at a repair shop as an intern, so I searched and called many companies to ask if they had any openings. Several companies laughed at me and said there was no place for a woman on the workshop floor. Feeling discouraged, I tried one last company. The owner said he would take a chance on me, and I was very happy. He promised me many learning opportunities and a steady job after graduation. I started a week later, and the first 2 weeks were great. I learned a lot and was promised even more opportunities. He told me I would get 2 to 3 hours a week of private practice time with the main painter, but soon things started to go wrong. The owner had taken a contract with a large city to restore underground containers. My job was to sand them down, apply sealant to the edges, and prepare them for painting. It was boring and repetitive work, but I did it carefully and worked hard. The promised practice time never happened. After a while, this became my daily routine. 8 hours a day, I was sanding containers. By the end of each day, my hands and wrists were numb from the vibrations. In my country, it is illegal to use a pneumatic sanding machine for more than 4 hours a day because it can cause serious damage to your hands and wrists. Still, I continued because I wanted to prove myself. After several months, the city contract ended, and I hoped I would finally get the training I was promised. But it did not happen. Instead, I was given tasks that had nothing to do with my education. I was asked to do work that should have been done by a contractor, such as installing metal bars on windows, repairing sliding doors, fixing walls, and doing other small maintenance jobs. None of this helped me become a painter. After 6 months of doing work that did not support my training, my boss called me into his office. He said he was fed up with my attitude and that hiring me was a mistake. Then he fired me on the spot. I was heartbroken and cried all the way home. I did not understand what I had done wrong. I had always worked hard, arrived on time, stayed late when needed, and never complained. I felt very low for a while. A few days later, I found out I was pregnant. We had been trying for over a year, so this news brought us a lot of joy and helped me feel better. When the time came for my final paycheck, it did not arrive. A week passed, and I called the company. I was told not to complain and that the money would be transferred soon. 2 more weeks passed, and still nothing. When I called again, my boss answered and shouted at me, using harsh words I will not repeat. At that point, I decided to contact a lawyer. It turned out that my boss had broken several laws. First, he was not allowed to fire me without a valid reason. He should have documented any problems and given me written warnings. He did none of that. Because of this, I was entitled to receive up to 6 months of pay, as if my contract had continued. Second, he was required to pay my final salary within 1 week of my termination. By then, it had already been 4 weeks. After the first week of delay, I was also entitled to extra compensation for each day the payment was late. My lawyer sent a letter to my boss explaining that we would take legal action. There was no response. Another letter was sent a week later, including increased compensation for the delay. Still, there was no reply. After about a month, I finally received my basic salary, but none of the extra compensation. My lawyer advised me to take the case to court, so we did. It took about 3 months before the hearing. My boss did not even show up. Instead, his lawyer sent a statement claiming that I was a bad employee, but there was no proof. I, however, had strong evidence. I had performance reports from my 1st and 4th months, and both were excellent. The judge clearly saw the truth and ruled in my favor. I was awarded 6 months of salary, compensation for the delayed payment, and my legal fees. I received the full amount within a week. After that, my former boss was fined for breaking employment laws. This led to an investigation by the employment authorities. They found that the building I worked in was unsafe, with a weak foundation and damaged walls. He was ordered to fix it or face closure. During the inspection, it was also discovered that he had been avoiding taxes. This brought in the tax authorities, who charged him with serious financial offenses. He was forced to pay back all the unpaid taxes, along with heavy penalties. He could not afford it. Within a few months, his business failed, and both of his companies closed. The building was eventually demolished. Even years later, the land is still empty. Sometimes when I feel discouraged, I drive past that place. It reminds me that no matter how unfair things seem at first, people are often held responsible for their actions in the end.